Welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. Hello, and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I'm your host from today, Priscillia, and I am joined today by Bruno Hermann. Hello, Bruno.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thanks for being on the show and taking the time to answer our questions. Bruno is a global leader in digital product, content and experience, and we'll be going through your career, your background, asking your views on localization, retailing e-commerce, and so on. So let's get on to the show.
Right.
So Bruno, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Take us through your background all the way up to your current activities.
Sure. I have nearly 25 years of experience in digital content, product and experience leadership. So both regionally and globally. So I started first locally and then I moved to global roles. I started actually my career as a consultant in the localization industry, working for startups. And at that time there were many startups. So I was one of those lucky persons to contribute to the industry at the beginning, and actually after this experience as a project manager, I decided to move to the client side, where I joined the high-tech sector, working for companies like Sony, Compaq, HP, all big names I know, so easy to remember. And I had some increasing roles in terms of program and project management. Specifically in terms of content operations. So that's where I spent a number of years. And nearly 15 years ago, I joined a big company, which was an opportunity for me to be in the business intelligence industry, which is Nielsen. And in Nielsen, I spent my time actually leading digital content operations, first regionally and then globally. And I actually created the digital globalization practice, which was brand new, and it was actually also part of the digital transformation for the company.
Fantastic. So I understand you hold a master's degree in translation and you specialize in 3 languages, French, English and Dutch. Mm-hmm. So could you tell us a bit about what triggered such an interest in languages? Because 3 languages, that's amazing.
Well, actually, I guess it started on a personal note, because it started in my family that was and still is multilingual and quite international. So from my early years, I was used to hearing various languages, speaking to different people from different countries. So I think that was really the trigger, even if it was not conscious probably at that time. And also it was a way for me to translate this interest that became a passion to a master, and that's why I went and got this master in translation studies.
Yes.
So yeah.
Because you're Belgium, so
Yes.
I suppose you live in a country that has 3 languages already.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's a huge asset.
Yeah, it's a huge asset, and it was also a good framework for me to as I said, to put my passion in practice, because I knew when I was a teenager that I wanted to be in the communication industry, but I also had a huge interest for technology.
Yes.
So I said, well, maybe for my first master, I would like to get a master in translation studies, because it could open some doors afterwards.
Absolutely. Brilliant. So let's go back to your career, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've played an important role in building up data-driven digital product operations.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout your experience as a digital globalization manager, you've helped companies such as Hewlett Packard and Nielsen for the past 20 years. So can you tell us a bit about this?
Sure. Well, in short, because it's a huge experience, so I'm not going to take too long. But what I would say is that I was really fortunate to be part and to contribute actually to the digital transformation and evolution of these companies. Of course, HP was already a technology company, high-tech company. Mm-hmm. But of course, when I joined them, it was the late 1990s, and the internet was already there, but not as mature as it is today. So eventually, I learned quite a lot in this area. And when I joined Nielsen, indeed, which started actually in the early 2000s, the digital transformation and the digital journey for the clients, not for the company itself, of course, I was really pleased to get more and more responsibility to not only to grow in terms of digital enablement, but also in terms of making content, making products and services from Nielsen more digital and more globally effective. And that was really the challenge. It was really to take care of this new mindset, because of course we talk about processes, specifically in digital, but it all starts, at least in my experience, with mindset. So we had to change mindset, we had to bring some new talents, etc. So overall, I think it was a great framework again, a great environment for me to grow with my passion, as I said before, but also to really to be part of this adventure, which was digital transformation. Absolutely. And already today, and still today, I would say, it's digital transformation is still there. So it's the journey is not over yet, and in many companies. So definitely, it's a great pleasure to work in this area.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I suppose it's changing every year. It's always changing.
Every month, I would say. It's extremely vivid in a way.
Yes.
But that's what makes this area really passionate, and that's really what I like about it. And of course, we can talk, as I said, about processes and other things which are more or less technical. But at the end of the day, it's about the business and how the business is changing and how customers are changing.
And so what would you say has changed in the way companies operate, their business when it comes to engaging customers, talking about businesses?
I would underline two things: speed and fragmentation. So first of all, speed. Well, there is no secret. Digital is about speed. Yes. It's about getting content, products, and services as quickly as possible and delivering them as quickly as possible for suppliers. So speed has really been a game changer in a way that, I would say it was speed itself was of course a requirement, but it generated other requirements like effectiveness, like time effectiveness, cost effectiveness, and definitely there was a big challenge over there. So speed is what I would point out first. I mentioned also fragmentation. Well, in terms of fragmentation, I would say that the digital evolution has transformed the journey of consumers and customers. They became digital customers, and this evolution has made their journey more phased, more fragmented, and because of that, we had, as a business, we had to adapt processes, content, and products to this new and evolving journey. And fragmentation, and I don't speak only about geographic segmentation, which is certainly something that even before digital was already on the table. But I would say that this fragmentation became or transformed itself into segmentation, and in a way it was a good opportunity to really look at the overall journey or life cycle, journey for a customer and life cycle for a product, and try to synchronize both.
Yes.
Specifically when it comes to snackable content and micro experiences, and I'm sure we talk about that a bit later on.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So coming back to your career and your previous background, you started your career in translation, right? Mm-hmm. And localization consultant. Yeah. So how would you say it helped you understand the localization industry, and what changes have you seen along the way?
Well, when I started, localization projects and operations were mostly transactional. So clients were coming, they were sending files or documents to translate and localize, and they were expecting to get those back on time and on budget. Mm-hmm. The evolution I've seen with digital is that clients were expecting more than that. They were expecting more than just operational deliveries. They were expecting added value, and because of that, the role and the added value of the localization industry had to adapt itself. And it's very interesting to actually see, if you take, the role of a project manager or the role of an engineer or a testing manager, to see how this has evolved, not even in 20 years, but also in 10 years. Yeah. It's really the kind of I would say, the sort of reflection of the fact that clients are to be addressed based on data-driven solutions. And also, I think that from a localization or industry localization perspective, it's really interesting to see how those companies have more or less, depending on which company, have really tackled this this new paradigm. And I think it's really interesting to see now that there are more and more players in the localization industry focusing on added value and no more on deliveries. So if I can just compare my starting years, it was all about delivering, and now it's all about delighting.
Of course, it is very important. Yeah. Quality over
quality and effectiveness. Definitely, content effectiveness has become the name of the game. Not only for the localization industry, but for all people coming to play in the content value chain. So whether it's a designer, a developer, a writer, everybody has to make content effective, and it has to be effective where and when it matters, which is really the challenge. And that's what globalization is all about, after all. Globalization is not really to spread the word or to deploy content all over the place. No, it's to deploy the right content with the right people at the right time.
Absolutely. So now moving towards a slightly different topic within the industry, artificial intelligence really is at the center of all the discussions, right?
Yeah.
In your opinion, what would you say impact-wise it has had on translation and digital content?
This is a great question, because I got that question quite regularly, and I would say I try to summarize my approach by saying that AI should not be a gold rush, a new gold rush. It should not be used for everything and anything. I think AI is going to be a great enabler, a great tool to change, to enhance a number of activities and tasks related to localization, but not only localization, of course, to the whole content life cycle. So that's a fact. So I would say that I would advise people to consider AI not as automated intelligence, but as intelligent automation. In other words, to be really selective about how to use AI and when to use it so that it's effective. It's effective for themselves because AI is an investment, obviously. It has to be properly funded. It has to be, it has to generate some return on investment, but also for the client. The client has to benefit from that in terms of speed, in terms of effectiveness. So there is a game, there is a win-win game, if you will, that AI has to contribute to in this case. So definitely, I see that as a big enabler to lead customers to more engaging products and more engaging content, and it will help a lot. All people, since we talk about the localization industry, it will help a number of people having a role in the localization industry to be better. I know some people are afraid because they say AI is going to take my job. I tend to say no, it's going to change your job, and change is never easy. But I would say that stick to what AI is all about, making it intelligent rather than just purely automated, and try to really put it into practice in the interest of customers.
Absolutely, because AI is still developing really, and human skill is obviously still necessary.
Absolutely.
Yes. So
absolutely, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. So now talking about one of your other activities, you're a regular contributor and columnist to the e-content magazine, Brand Quarterly magazine, and the Journal of Brand Strategy, and maybe soon in our quarterly publication, VTQ. So in a recent article, I understand that you've discussed the transformation of cost management and into cost leadership in digital globalization. So could you expand a little bit on this for me, please?
Yes, absolutely. It's a huge topic again, so I'll try to be short. Once again. In this article, I wanted to highlight why and how digital globalization had to be considered as a real profit booster rather than just a cost center. Because of course, investing in digital globalization means funding, means budgeting, etc. So some people might just say, you know, the dark side of it, if I can put it that way, from a financial perspective. What I wanted to highlight is that, okay, there is a cost associated to, you know, managing and leading digital globalization in any company, by the way. It doesn't matter if it's a blue chip or a startup. Mm-hmm. But what I really would like to, what I really wanted to insist on was that you know, it has to be, the value of digital globalization has to be closely linked to content effectiveness. Again, I know we circled back on this content effectiveness topic, but that's reality. And you know, it's definitely a change in processes, but again, a change in mindset. And I explained in the article how, or I suggested, well, let's be honest, let's be humble. I recommended a few things to do to change mindsets, yes, and as a result, to also transform processes, to really use digital globalization as a business, as I said, a business booster, mm-hmm, and move away, try to move a little bit, yes, away from what is usually seen as a burden or as a nice to have, as an option, and it's none of that. It's really a business driver. So my goal was really to tell people, don't underestimate, don't take digital globalization for what it's not. It is very important today, in digital more than ever. So globalization is not going away. It's there for a long time, I believe. And also it's a way to really highlight what they should change, what they should you know, be responsible for in this framework. And of course, the article was about how to do that from my experience, because I went through that journey from, you know, from zero to where I was, but also to really do that in a sensible way, not to be too pushy, not to be too aggressive. I think in this area, just like in many other areas, you have to use the right arguments, you have to use the right words to convince your stakeholders. And I think that's what the purpose of this article was to really give some food, some fuel for these people to talk to their stakeholders.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And talking about boosters and ideas, you know, for customers and companies, what advice would you have for brands who would like to effectively develop their brands globally?
I would say that globalizing brands, or globalizing even content in general, is about caring for people, for local customers. And caring for local customers means really getting closer to them. Really, I wouldn't say even walking in their shoes, because that would be probably too ambitious, but really see things from their perspective and actually act as you would like to act as a customer yourself. Yeah. So there is again a change in mindset, probably for some people, not everybody, but I would really insist on this aspect of making you know, products and services, content in general, more successful internationally by not assuming that a brand is strong enough by default internationally, mm-hmm, is to really make it happen and not, you know, move a little bit away from, you know, probably some assumptions and some myths which are you know, which potentially may slow you down or may just be completely wrong. And I think that's again, it's all about in the approach and working with the right people, not, you know, hyper centralizing everything, not decentralizing everything. Yeah. So the brand has really to talk to local people. Then that's, you know, it's all about creating local vibes, yes, local feelings. Brands are about feelings. So, and it's a big challenge. We see that, you know, all the big brands and small brands have to be really careful about, you know, local markets and how people will perceive first, yeah, and receive next brands and how, as I said, how it will generate vibes or not. In worst
Absolutely,
case.
yes.
Yeah.
Adapting the content to particular markets. Yes,
Exactly. Yeah, and then definitely to consider customers as individuals as much as a market.
Yes.
Because sometimes you might see a new market, you want to launch a new product in a new market. You might say, yes, I want to go there, I want to grow my business in this country. And you might say, well, this is my audience, this is my group of customers. But in many cases, it's more complicated than that. You have, again, due to the fragmentation I was talking about earlier on, you have to really look at who you really want to engage. Is it just one group? In many cases, it's not.
Yeah.
It's more like different groups based on ages, based on location, based on requirements, and this is really important. I think that's what global brands should do to really have local vibes and roots.
Yes, absolutely. So last year you delivered a fantastic keynote presentation at the Think Global Forum event in London, and you touched on speaking the language with the voice of the customer, and that is what localization should deliver.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've also discussed disruptive technology. Could you tell us a bit about those two topics? What are your thoughts on the two areas?
Sure. Yes, when I was talking about speaking the language of customers, what I meant to convey as a message was that people should go beyond words. My definition of content effectiveness is that content is effective when it is linguistically, culturally, and functionally relevant, authentic, and engaging. I really put those three aspects together because I think that you may have the greatest content on this planet. If it's not delivered with the right cultural values and in the right functional ecosystem, it's not going to work. Same thing if you have some, the worst content on this planet, but if you still have the right ecosystem, it doesn't match either. So you really have to tackle those three aspects at the same time and with equal importance. So definitely is to go what the language means for many people, which is words, sentences, and stuff like that. Yes, it's very important to have something that is linguistically meaningful, because otherwise you don't understand anything. But specifically now in the digital age, you cannot say, well, okay, that's a great piece of content in Spanish or in simplified Chinese, I'm ready to go. No, you have to look at how this content is going to fit in the cultural values that are authentic and personal locally, but also how they will work, how that content will work functionally in the ecosystem. So for sure, disruption was another topic indeed, because again, I wanted to change a little bit the view of people on this aspect. People talk about disruption as something generated by technology. I would agree to some extent. I agree that of course some technology is inducing, disruption, because mobile phones are probably the best example of that. But it's not always true. Actually, in a number of cases, disruption comes from customers because they have new requirements, they have new expectations, they have new aspirations, and technology is not meeting those requirements yet. So disruption is coming to us. And we have to leverage, we have to enable technology to meet those requirements. So it's not like a one-way street, if you will. Disruption is not like technology to customers, it goes both ways. And that's what I wanted to deliver as a message.
And you've also commented on the importance of snackable content, and you mentioned it earlier in our conversation, and also micro experiences. So can you expand a little bit on this thing, please?
Another huge topic. So I'll try to stick to the essence of that. The reason why I'm so keen to refer or even to explain what snackable content is because, as I said before, the customer journey has changed quite a lot. It has become much more phased and fragmented, and in order to meet this, or in order to match this new journey, this evolving journey, content has to be different too. So it's not enough to say, yes, we have a piece of content for a customer who wants to buy that product or wants to get that service. We have that piece of content to train the customers. Actually, a customer is more than just a customer. I like to use the picture of Russian dolls for that. A customer is like the big Russian doll, and then you open the big one and you have a smaller one, and then you have another smaller.
Yes.
So for me, I would say probably a typical digital customer is made of 8 to 10 Russian dolls. And each doll has a role to play, because before a customer is a customer, is first of all somebody who is looking for a product, looking for information, asking questions, trying to get some help, getting influenced by other people. So you have to look at every step that takes place along the way before actually the customer buys your product or your service. And that's what snackable content is all about, is to really, be in sync with this, this number of steps. And, I would say the real purpose is to make sure that snackable content can be, of course, granular enough, but also can be clustered along the way. So that, for instance, if you create a piece of content to announce a new product, okay, this is going to be for a customer, well, not yet a customer, but somebody who is looking for a product, so yours in this case, and you have a big wow announcement, and then you take that content for that moment. But after all, later on in the journey, you have the same person who is more or less convinced, and then you can reuse it, but you have to cluster that piece of content with another piece of content that is more detailed. So, it's all about clustering and being granular at the same time. And snackable content is the best way, because at the end of the day, in a workshop, one day I wanted to give the image of a customer journey, and I said it's like a meal. The meal has to be complete and fancy along the way. If the appetizer is bad, the meal is going to be bad anyway. So it's like exactly what I mean here in this case. Snackable content is really meant to make sure that the whole meal, the whole journey happens seamlessly and according to expectations.
Definitely makes sense, absolutely. So finally, to finish this interview, you've spoken in the past about localization, right? And language as a true business driver rather than simply a cost center. And nowadays, many organizations are learning, how to get this right. And for companies who are just starting out on this journey, what advice would you give them?
That's very easy. I would say understand what localization is truly all about. Because something I've seen for the past 25 years, whether I was, in the localization industry or on the client side, was that a number of stakeholders, a number of people simply didn't know what localization was, or they thought they know what it was, but it wasn't what it was, what they were thinking. So my advice would be understand what it is and make sure that once you understand what localization really is, which is more than putting a few words into another language, which is one of the many definitions I've heard, is to really embed localization people, whether it's in-house teams or external suppliers, in your value chain, so that they are more than just delivering back and forth. So that they are more like engaged and involved in activities, for instance, in product roadmaps or in meetings, in design meetings. So that all these people, whether they're linguists or engineers, project managers, can really be part of it, be part of the game, but also to really contribute to the end result, which is the content or the product. So once this understanding, which is not easy to gain, I agree. So it's not is important for those organizations, but also for people who, like me, want to make that understand and want to convince stakeholders in general, or their managers or their senior leadership teams, that this is not an option, that this is really what customers need. So we may not like it. Some people would like to get rid of localization in a perfect world, but the world isn't perfect. And in any case, customers will need that. So think about customers. Understand what localization is from end to end.
Yes.
And take up the challenge.
Well, thank you very much, Bruno.
Thank you.
Very insightful. Thanks for your time today. It was brilliant. So this is the end of today's show with Bruno Hermann, global leader in digital product content and experience. We'll be joined soon by other guests for another Vistatec show for more interesting discussion with interesting people from around the world.